not at his desk. File item 71, Senator Wesso. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 19 by Assemblymember Alejo relative to military service.
Senator Wesso.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to present AJR 19, which urges Congress to enact legislation to allow immigrants who are eligible under the President's executive order for deferred action for childhood arrivals, known as DACA or DAPA, to serve in our U.S. military. This past April, the House Armed Services Committee passed an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, urging the Secretary of Defense to consider allowing DACA-eligible immigrants. Members, going back to this past April, the House Armed Services Committee passed an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, urging the Secretary of Defense to consider allowing DACA-eligible immigrants to serve in the military. The amendment had bipartisan support. Unfortunately, in mid-May, the House voted to strip away the amendment when the act came before them for a vote. Nonetheless, thousands of immigrants have and continue to serve vital roles in our military intelligence, making them an essential resource to our national defense. As of 2009, there have been 119 immigrant soldiers who have made the ultimate sacrifice for their country being the United States of America, during combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, all of which have been granted citizenship posthumously. We can grant them citizenship posthumously, but we can't do that in life. In closing, the majority of immigrants covered by the President's executive actions have lived in the United States most of their lives. They consider the United States their country of origin. This country is all they know. They are Americans for all intents and purposes, and all this resolution requests is that Congress give them the opportunity to serve their country in the armed forces. This bill passed out of the Assembly floor with bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Galgiani. Aye. Glazer. Hall. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Weso. Aye. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leyva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Murrell. Wynn. Nilsson. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. Aye. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Call the absent members.
Mendoza, aye. Anderson. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Nilsson.
Please call the absent members one more time.
Hall. Wynn. Nilsson.
Ayes 37, no 0. The resolution is adopted. Moving on to file item 72, Senator Hill. Pass on file. Senator Hertzberg, for a purpose to your rights.
Briefly, for privilege of the floor, requesting unanimous consent that future Senator Jackson Baugh can sit with me on the floor for the remainder of the session.
Without objection. Moving on to file item 72, Senator Hill. Pass on file. File item 74, Senator Canella. Not at his desk. File item 77, Senator Wolk. Pass on file. File item 83, Senator Leno. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1059 by Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, an act relating to environmental justice.
Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we all know that as the result of the good work of our President Pro Tem a few years back, that 25% of all the revenue realized from the carbon fees relative to AB 32 must be dedicated to projects that benefit disadvantaged communities. The Cal EPA, through its Cal EnviroScreen 2.0 tool, identifies disadvantaged communities based on geographic, socioeconomic, public health, and environmental hazard criteria. But the Air Resources Board has acknowledged that there are gaps in the U.S.-Mexico border environmental data, and that can mean that those areas in the state will suffer from loss of funding that they should have received as a result of that 25% mandate. This bill will correct that shortfall by updating the EnviroScreen by using any relevant environmental data relating to known impacts on environmental quality of the communities of the California-Mexico border region. I ask for your aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing hearing none, is there objection to using a unanimous roll call? Seeing hearing none, ayes 38, no 0. The measure passes. Senator De Leon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and colleagues. We can go back to motions and resolutions very quickly.
Without objection.
Colleagues, just very quickly, I have the deep honor to introduce the parents of one of our colleagues. He was a little embarrassed today to perhaps present them, but we have with us Mr. Michael Allen, who's Professor Emeritus from UCLA. He's a Shakespearean from UCLA, Michael Allen, who is the father of Senator Ben Allen. And also we have Elena Allen, who is a retired public school teacher from Santa Monica and also is an artist. And they are the proud parents of our freshman senator, Mr. Ben Allen. So, Elena and Michael Allen.
Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Allen, to the State Senate. Senator Glazer.
Mr. President, members, I'd like to ask we go back to privileges of the floor.
Without objection.
Okay. Members, we're all blessed by having wonderful interns in our office that allow us to do the good work of the people of this state. And I have been blessed to have some wonderful interns in my office I'd like to briefly recognize that are here with us on the floor from my district office. First, I'd like to recognize Aaron Baum, a senior at Miramonte High School, Tanner Larkin, a senior at Las Lomas High School in Walnut Creek, Ilana Lim, a senior at Monte Vista High School in Danville, Iris Pei, a junior at Doherty Valley High School from San Ramon, and Emily Walter, a sophomore from Skidmore College in Saratoga Springs, New York. She's from Lafayette. They've risen in the back. Thank you. Unable to join us here today, but also great help in my office is Janet Guo, a sophomore from the College Preparatory School in Oakland, who's from Moraga, Louis Kangatur, a junior from Miramonte High School, and Alex Wang, a junior from Miramonte High School in Orinda. Thank you all for all that you've done to help my office, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Glazer. Let's welcome Senator Glazer's interns. Thank you for your service. Senator Runner.
Under privileges of the floor, please,
Without
for
objection.
introduction. I don't have as many interns as Senator from the North, but I do have one great one to honor. Connor McNamara has been in our office this summer. He's going to be a junior at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. He's done a great job. We've had some staff changes, and he's always been steadily there to answer the phone and to help in legislation, so we really appreciate his work, and he's right back there. He'll wave at you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Members, we are back to Assembly third reading, file item 87, pass on file File item 89, Senator Jackson. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 969 by Assemblymember Williams, an act relating to community college districts.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. AB 969 would expand the authorization of a community college district to deny enrollment or permit conditional enrollment if an applicant has violated the district's policies on sexual assault, domestic violence, or dating violence. This bill would authorize a community college district to require applicants to disclose whether they had previously been expelled from a community college for a violation of their district-adopted policies concerning campus sexual assault. Again, not disciplined or suspended, but actually expelled, the highest level form of discipline. A hearing by a local community college governing board would be required for an applicant who has made prior violations, providing an opportunity for the board to assess whether the admittance of the applicant would impact campus safety. The bill ensures that community college districts have the tools necessary to protect students, employees, and the public in cases of the most egregious violations of sexual assault policies. I ask for your aye vote.
Members, the better discussion on this item. Senator Nielsen.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I rise in very vigorous support of Senator Jackson's legislation. And it's all the more important now. This is a tool for a community college to do some minor things maybe but not inconsequent, to protect those who attend those colleges. Because of many things that have happened, we have ever so many dangerous sex offenders in our community who are there rather than being in custody. Such is the product of the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation not evaluating sexually violent predators and referring them to the Board of Parole hearings for a hearing wherein they could then refer the evidence, if found that there was cause by the board, to the district attorney of the county of that sex offender, whereby that individual could be civilly prosecuted under the sexually violent predator statute and kept in custody. In that that's not been happening, then it's just another example of why we are vulnerable in our communities, and this is another tool. It's certainly worthy and to protect our children and our youth and our young women, well, women of all ages, frankly, that go to community colleges. I urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Members, additional debate or discussion on this item? Hearing none, Secretary, please call the roll. I'm sorry, Senator Jackson, would you like to close?
If I may, and while I appreciate Senator Nielsen's statements and all, the focus here is not on the criminal proceeding. This is the focus on maintaining the safety of our community colleges and its students. This deals with disciplinary action, which is very different than criminal action. While I have no dispute with the importance of that, I think it's critically important that we're talking about the ability of the community colleges to protect their students as part of its disciplinary proceedings. And with that, I would ask for your aye vote.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Galgioni. Aye. Glazer. Hall. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Aye. Huff. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Morrell. Wynn. Nielsen. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Runner. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye. Anderson, aye. Roth, aye. Glazer,
Call
aye.
the absent
Hernandez, aye.
members.
Gaines, Hall, Huff, aye. Morlock, aye. Morrell, Wynn, Runner.
Ayes 35, no 0. Measure passes. Members, we're going to move to the consent and special consent calendar. Senator Mendoza, for what purpose you rise?
Under privileges of the floor, Mr. President,
Without objection.
I would like to take a moment to introduce a special guest that's here with us on the floor. He's a constituent of mine. He attends one of the top high schools in the state and happens to be, it's called Whitney High School, and it's part of the ABC Unified School District in Cerritos, near where I live. And he happens actually to be the nephew of our own sergeant here, Sergeant Jody Burnett. Let's welcome his nephew, Benjamin Barnett, from Whitney High School in my district. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We're back to the consent and special consent calendar. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 902, Assembly Joint Resolution 18, Assembly Bill 731, 1337, 1195, 1339, 1350.
The consent calendar would be deemed, the consent calendar and special consent calendar will be deemed read. Members, is there any objection to using our unanimous roll call on those consent and special consent calendar? Seeing none, ayes 38, no 0. The consent calendar and the special consent calendar are approved. Members, we're going to move to governor's appointments. At this time, members, the regular session will stand in recess, and the first extraordinary session will be convened. Second reading file, Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 12 with amendments, Senate Bill 4, and Senate Bill 5.
At this time, the first extraordinary session will stand in recess, and the second extraordinary session will be convened. Second reading file, Secretary, Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 9.
At this time, the second extraordinary session will stand in recess, and the regular session will be reconvened. Members, we're going to move back to return to motions and resolutions for adjourn and memories. Senator Hancock.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise today to adjourn in memory of a friend, colleague, and citizen extraordinaire from the Berkeley community, Kitty McLean, who died of a severe stroke at age 86. Kitty grew up in the Midwest in Gambier, Ohio, where her father was the dean of Kenyon College. She went to Westtown, a Quaker boarding school in Pennsylvania, graduated from Harvard with a master's in art history, and was executive secretary of the National Student Association during the tumultuous period of the Cold War, when the National Student Association played many very, very important roles on our college campuses. She and her husband, Hugh, and their family moved to Berkeley in 1968 when he became a professor at UC. And she found her real passion for local politics. Kitty truly was one of those people who thinks globally and acts locally. She worked on school issues, school bonds. She was a stalwart of the Sierra Club and led it on many, many very important campaigns, and was a founder and active participant in Citizens for an East Shore State Park, which is building the beautiful park along the east shore of the San Francisco Bay. She will be sorely missed for her wonderful smile, her absolutely solid ethics and good sense by all of us. She leaves 3 children, Anna, Clara, and Gregory, 3 grandchildren, Catherine, Nicholas, and Gianna, her family, her community, and her many, many friends. We'll miss her. I ask you to join me in adjourning in her memory.
Thank you. Senator Hancock, please bring her name to the desk so she can be properly memorialized. Senator Nielsen.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I would ask that we also adjourn today in memory of Mary Antoinette Pascuzzi. She's the mother of one of our wonderful employees, Christine. She was a distinguished resident of Auburn, but Mary Antoinette was a product of many small towns. Montague is a very small town up by the Oregon border. They lived in Oregon. She graduated from school up in Oregon and lived in various smaller communities, settling in Auburn, which still is kind of a small community. As one product of small towns, she made a very large mark on life. The best stamp is in her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that survived Mary. She and her husband loved dancing, and they frequented many of the dances and the halls in these small towns. I can envision them kind of rustic environments, old white buildings, some of the paint flaking off, hardwood floors, and people coming to those dances at night and enjoying themselves. That's something that reminds me of Mary. But the best that I remember of her would be through her children whom I have known. People of integrity, dedicated to their communities as she was. She was even secretary of the grand jury. A loving family, a trait that sometimes often is lost in today's society. But the Pascuzzis were and are yet a close family. They all will remember their mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and we do too. I ask that we adjourn in the memory of Mary Antoinette Pascuzzi.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Please bring her name forward so she can maybe properly memorialized. Senator Leyva.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, it is with great sadness that I ask that we adjourn in memory today in memory of Courtney Ferranto, a beautiful and happy young woman who passed away recently just shy of her 23rd birthday. The entire Inland Empire community, especially her family and friends who knew and loved her, are still grieving at this unexpected and tragic loss. Having lived in Ontario most of her life, Courtney is precisely the kind of young woman that when you reflect back upon her life, you know that she truly lived a rich life, full of love, and touched the lives of many. Courtney studied cosmetology and worked at Sephora, doing every single day what she loved, helping make people feel beautiful while laughing and smiling both at home and at work. At the point of her untimely death, Courtney was about to move into a new apartment with her boyfriend, Jacob, who was also struck in the car accident. Fortunately, Jacob survived the accident, although I'm sure that the memories of losing his girlfriend will be difficult. Courtney is survived by her father, Santo Ferranto, and his wife, Dory, as well as her mother, Belinda Gibson, and her husband, Larry, and Courtney's two older brothers, Joe and John. I would also like to thank Courtney's family for making the decision to donate her organs. Through those life-saving donations, other families will be spared the pain that their own family is suffering. Losing anyone is difficult, but it's especially difficult when it is your child. Today, the California State Senate stands with Courtney's immediate and extended family as they mourn their tremendous loss following her death. I hope you'll join me in adjourning in Courtney's memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leyva. Please bring Ms. Ferranto's name up to the desk so that she may be properly memorialized, and please send her family our deepest condolences. Senator De Leon, are we prepared to take up governor's appointments? Yes. Members, we are going to move back to consideration of daily file, governor's appointments, file item 13. Senator De Leon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. File item number 13, we'll go through these very quickly. Mr. Cornelius Gallagher, as well as Mr. Mark Nelson, Both individuals are members of the California Exposition and State Fair Board of Directors. They're both being reappointed. They were heard on July 8th, and they were approved on a bipartisan vote, no opposition, 4-0. Jesse Choper is a member of the California Horse Racing Board. This is also a reappointment, also heard on July 8th, 4-0 vote. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, members. Debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. I. Anderson. I. Bates. I. Bell. I. Berryhill. Block. I. Canella. De Leon. I. Fuller. I. Gaines. Galgiani. I. Glazer. I. Hall. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Hueso. I. Huff. I. Jackson. I. Lara. I. Leno. I. Leyva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. I. Morrell. I. Wynn. Nilsson. I. Pan. I. Pavley. I. Roth. I. Runner. I. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wachowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Berryhill. Canella. Gaines. I. Hall. Wynn.
Ayes 36, no 0. The appointments are confirmed. File item 14, Senator De Leon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, last appointment, file item number 14, that is Barbara Lee. This is the appointment for Director of DTSC, which is the Department of Toxic Substances Control. This appointment was heard on July 15th and approved on a 3-0 vote. We had a very in-depth, very lengthy discussion about the problems that currently exist at the department, DTSC. They are cultural and institutional by nature. Obviously, this is a really troubled agency, DTSC. This is an agency that we've been working very closely. In fact, have had oversight hearings. I personally have been involved very deeply, unfortunately, with DTSC, given the Exide issue and the harmful toxic pollutant emissions of lead and arsenic into the air that has impacted largely communities of color, those poor communities in and around the city of Vernon, where Exide is currently headquartered, or no longer, I should say, due to a U.S. attorney agreement, federal agreement, with the closure of this battery smelt recycling plant. During the budget process, if you recall, we created an oversight advisory panel that will monitor the actions of the department and report back to the governor as well as to us, the legislature, within 90 days. I do believe that Ms. Lee is capable. This is a very difficult position to fill, no doubt about it. We had Debbie Raphael, who held it temporarily. Very good individual, very capable individual, but obviously it was a very overwhelming situation at DTSC. Well, she took off to San Francisco, got a higher salary, and didn't have to commute. So this is a difficult position to fill. But I do believe that Ms. Lee is a capable individual. Now, we're going to have to wait for results, without question, that are measurable with regards to improvements, because the mission of DTSC is the health and welfare of our communities in the state of California. With that, Mr. President, as well as colleagues, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Members, debate or discussion on this item? Senator Nielsen.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I would argue that this has not been one of my favorite agencies throughout its history. And indeed, to echo the sentiments of Senator De Leon, it has been a troubled agency in many respects, and sometimes a little bit arbitrary and capricious. But I've had occasion to meet and work with and talk with Director Lee. I find her to be a problem solver, one who wants to turn the agency around. I believe that she's got the resolve and the ability to do so. Indeed, as Senator De Leon echoes, we're going to have to let the jury be out. But I'm not unfamiliar with being in challenging situations in agencies, as I was at the board for so many years. And I understand what it takes to deal with it. I believe that Director Lee does have that capability, and I will be supporting her confirmation today.
Thank you. Senator Hancock.
Yes, I will also be supporting the nomination today. And I thank Senator De Leon for pointing out the troubled history of DTSC, and particularly around a site, well, I think there are sites across the state, but I'm particularly concerned about a site in my district which is extremely toxic, extremely full of volatile gases that can pose a danger to individuals working or living on the site. One of the first things I did as a legislator was try to get that site put under DTSC so that it could be remediated. 13 years later, we have not succeeded in getting it remediated. And I met with Barbara Lee. I believe that she is committed to doing what needs to be done, and I am committed to working with her and DTSC to make sure that it gets done. But she is a problem solver. She does intervene to indicate that things really do have to happen. And I think it underscores for all of us the need for our oversight when we have toxic situations in our district, and that we need to work with her and in partnership with her to make sure that these problems get resolved.
Members, additional debate or discussion on this item? Senator Leon, would you like to close?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I very much appreciate the comments from the good senator from Berkeley, as well as the senator from Colusa. He's right on target with regards to his remarks of a very troubled agency that is systematic, cultural, institutional. We had a very lengthy hearing. You know, I apologize to my members of the Senate Rules Committee. It dragged on for many hours. But the Rules Committee members on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, really dug in deep on this one, because obviously, irrespective of political party and persuasion, we're all very concerned for the health and welfare of our community of children and families throughout the state of California. A very deeply troubled agency. We'll be watching them very closely, but Barbara Lee has no choice but rather to change culture and put it on the right pathway to protect communities in a fair manner, and to be aggressive about this approach also too. So with that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Bates. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Block. Aye. Canella. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. Galgioni. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Aye. Huff. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leyva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Nielsen. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk.
Call the
aye.
absent members.
Anderson, no. Morrell, aye to no. Wolk, aye. Wolk we have as aye. Bates. Berryhill. Canella. Fuller. Gaines. Hall. Huff. Morlock. Wynn. Runner. Vidak.
Ayes 27, noes 2. The appointment is confirmed. Members, if there's no other business, Senator De Leon, the desk is clear.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, have a wonderful, productive weekend with your constituents, with your loved ones, with your family members. We will see each other here Monday. We'll adjourn back here on Monday at 2 p.m. Thank you very much.
Members, the Senate will be in recess until 3:30, at which time the adjournment motion will be made. We will reconvene Monday at 2 p.m.